Speak.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr. Chairman, there's one way of characterising this bill as it's reported back from the Select Committee, and that is that it contains the good, I'll come to that in a moment, it contains the bad, and it contains the ugly. And the ugly is what is omitted from this bill, because this bill is a result of the Electoral Justice and Electoral Law Select Committee inquiry, and I've got that inquiry in front of me, and there are things that are recommended by that the Minister has taken out. There are things that the Minister said in her introductory speech in praise of the new clauses on the easy vote card that she's taken out. And there are things that weren't put in there at all, despite the fact that the Independent Electoral Commission said they should be there. And that relates to the question of coattailing, which has been used by the National Party to rort the system to maintain themselves in power. That's all there is to it. The majority of New Zealanders said in their submissions, the majority of New Zealanders say in every poll that has ever been taken on the issue that they want the coattailing provision taken out. The coattailing provision that keeps Peter Dunn and John Banks in the House, that keeps the majority for the National Party. That was not what the electoral law was ever intended to do, and the National Party has rorted this system to keep themselves in power. I want to come back to that in a moment. Let me say what was good about the bill. What was good about the bill was the stupid clause that was originally in the bill that said no wearing of ribbons or rosettes, that Scott Simpson said would terrify the voters if they saw somebody wearing a ribbon or a rosette. That has been taken out by the Select Committee. And the Select Committee is wise in doing that. For 150 years, parties have been able to wear a ribbon on election day. And why shouldn't they? There was no evidence that that would do any harm, and I hope Scott Simpson will get to his feet and apologise for the nonsense that he spoke on the first reading of this bill, because the good thing the Select Committee did was remove the nonsense about not wearing a ribbon. You know, the funny thing about the new electoral legislation is that you can actually vote 17 days before election day. And far from being intimidated by ribbons or unduly influenced by them, they see all the hoardings up, they see the campaign in the full swing of it during the 17 days that 17% of New Zealanders go down and vote. So it's just nonsense to say, take away the ribbons, take away the rosettes, and the Select Committee has made a wise decision. Unfortunately, in making that wise decision, they've done what they've been told to do by the Minister, and that is to remove the material relating to the easy vote card. The easy vote card, Mr. Chairman, is really important for people in my electorate that's multicultural, that have problems with English. They know they can take their card along, show it to the polling clerk looks at it and can do, in a very simple and efficient way, can issue the vote to the voter. Now, the National Party has learnt something from the Tea Party in the United States. In the United States, the Tea Party went out of its way to stop people participating. They wanted all sorts of identification. Make it as hard as you can to get people to participate on the basis of the fact that those who are disadvantaged are less likely to vote. And I argue, Mr. Chairman, that that's exactly what this Minister is doing in this clause. She is saying, make it harder for them. It's not what she said when she introduced the bill. What did she say when she introduced the bill? She said, another important change enabled by this bill is the greater use of the easy vote cards during the electoral process. She was in favour of it. She said the bill will enable easy vote cards to be used as a record that the ordinary vote is being cast. It will allow the cards to be used instead of a declaration form by special voters. It will simplify and speed up the issuing of ordinary and special votes. It will also make the scrutinising of the rolls that occurs during the election counting process more accurate and efficient. What changed, Minister, between the speech that you gave on the introduction of this bill and now, when you don't want the easy card registered at all as a statutory right for people to use that card to increase participation, to make the democratic process work better? Mr. Speaker, all of the arguments about the easy vote card were dealt with by the Justice and Electoral Committee when they did their inquiry. Every argument that the Minister and the National Party has raised against putting the easy vote card in this bill, they're taking it out, was contradicted by what the Justice and Electoral Committee said in their report. And Mr Chairman, it's important that we refer back to that, because when the Justice and Electoral Committee did an inquiry on the easy vote card, they said it was really important because it simplified voting procedures. That's what we're trying to do in this legislation, surely. Isn't electoral legislation about making the process more efficient, easier to understand, simpler, getting more people to vote? And what I allege that the Minister is doing is exactly the opposite. Too late she realised her mistake after her first reading speech. Oh my God, this will make it easier for those people to vote who perhaps don't understand the system that well and might make the terrible mistake of voting Labor. So, Minister, you've taken these clauses out of the bill without any argument, without any justification, in contradiction to what the Justice and Electoral Committee argued in their inquiry and in contradiction to what you yourself said in the first reading debate. And we had plenty of abuse, including the argument that I'd been seen with some electoral fraudster. Yes, I was there, standing alongside Kanwaljit Bakshi from the National Party. I didn't hear any comment from the Minister about that. And if we're going to get into dirty politics, we'll talk about endorsing businesses overseas that your family has a connection with. That's what we can do if we really want to get down to that level of argument, Minister. And you brought it in, and that's why I'm replying to it. This bill is a dirty effort to actually distort the electoral process rather than enhance it. And I want to come back to coattailing. New Zealanders time and again have said it is wrong that John Banks or the ACT Party got elected with, I think, 3, 4, 5 members of Parliament in 2008, when the New Zealand First Party got a higher vote but didn't get an electoral seat because they weren't gifted one by the National Party. The party that got a higher percentage of the vote wasn't represented at all, and the ACT Party was represented simply because there was a cup of tea, and the leader of the opposition then, John Key, said to the national voters, you'll help us rort the system, you'll help us get elected if you vote for the national candidate, which was then Rodney Hyde in Epsom. They did it again with John Banks and the Tea Party last time. And New Zealanders have seen that and they're disgusted by that. The Electoral Commission, which is independent, Mr Chairman, independent, and we need independent people to determine how this electoral law should work properly, they said get rid of it. And my question to the Minister, if she wants to get to her hind legs again and take a call, or to any National Party person, why isn't that in the bill? Why was it just the National Party that stood in the way of getting rid of rorting the system, which is what the coattails provision allows? I challenge the National Party to stand up and explain why that is not in the bill. It's a rort. New Zealanders are against it. The Independent Electoral Commission is against it. The National Party sees self-interest because it can't hold on to coalition partners, to rorting the system so they can have an ACT member or members and a United Future member or members. That is not the way to make electoral law in this country. Democracy is too important to rort the process by making it about the self-interest of the governing party instead of the honesty and the integrity and the efficiency of the law. And that's what it's meant to be about. It's meant to be about honesty, efficiency and integrity. And in two ways, Minister, you have undermined this bill. You have undermined it by not putting the provision in to get rid of coattailing, when that's what New Zealanders expected of you. They voted for MMP with the promise of the Prime Minister that if that happened, there'd be a review. There is a review. The review said clearly get rid of coattailing, and you've ignored it. Why? Not a hint of an explanation, because the explanation is clear to everybody. It's not in the self-interest of national maintaining power to take that clause out. That's about as simple and about as appalling as the explanation is for not taking the coattailing provisions out. Why take the easy vote provisions out? You don't want those other people to vote. No, Mr Speaker, Mr Chairman, not you, but the Minister. She doesn't want that provision in the bill because it will facilitate more people voting. Mr Speaker, those provisions are rotten.
I'm calling Brendan Horan.
Thank you, Mr Chair. What a vibrant